Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here at the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for July 13th, 2020, around 3:21 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, taking a look here at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies, last updated as of yesterday, July the 12th, we continue to notice this very persistent area of significantly cooler anomalies out here in the equatorial Pacific off the coast of South America right now. This area has spread out over the last several weeks and months well over here, mainly in our particular interest area in the Nino 3.4 region, which is located roughly right inside that box right there. And that is basically a measure of our ENSO conditions, either El Nino or La Nina or cool neutral or warm neutral. And right now we did see a very slight warming of this area out here in the equatorial, the Nino 3.4 region because of a little bit of a westerly wind burst. However, that was mainly focused out in this region, and now you're starting to see the results of a very strong easterly wind burst take a shape here. These easterly trade winds that kind of blow across South America right here, they upwell cooler water out there, and then they spread it all the way through oceanic transfer processes. They began to transfer it all the way out here, and that's why this area is cooler than average for this time of the year. This helps the Atlantic Basin take over, and it hasn't so far. Even though we've had 6 named storms, none of them have come down in the deep tropics, but that time is coming, and we'll show that here in the last few images in today's video. We'll take a look at why it's going to start ramping up pretty quickly as we end July, so stick around for that. Again, taking a look here at the actual Atlantic sea surface temperatures and the anomalies here, much above the long-term average. You no longer see a lot of these cooler blobs here. This is because a very strong westerly wind event has occurred across this area. This is likely to continue for the next 6 to 10 days or so. This is going to allow significant warming in the Atlantic main development region. You can already see that taking shape here. The Atlantic Basin is running quite a bit above the long-term average, in most cases about a half a degree to a degree Celsius above the long-term average down in there in the deep tropics, and out here in the southwestern Atlantic Basin running about a whole 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. North Atlantic is still running quite a bit above the long-term average. However, I'll take a look here in a minute showing the comparison between this season 2017 and 13, so stick around for that as well. Now, based on the upper ocean heat content updated as of this morning, again, this is the taking a look here at the water content depth. Basically, how deep in the ocean does this 80-degree isotherm go? And again, this is basically in the kind of upper third of the scale from these, yellows, greens, into the warmer colors. You're getting the higher upper ocean heat content, your more latent heat release potential, and the more potential for a tropical cyclone to actually strengthen significantly in that environment. And you see where we're heading, and down here in the southwestern Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, these areas are well above where it should be in terms of the upper ocean heat content, quite a bit above 2017, especially out here in the Caribbean and near the Lesser Antilles. Out there, again, some cases it's literally off the charts, off the coast of Belize and the Cayman Islands, down near Jamaica down here. So again, these areas are very susceptible to hurricanes for sure. We've had a little bit of a drought. The last real significant hurricane down here in the Caribbean was Hurricane Matthew back in 2016, and the pattern looks very eerily similar and favorable for Caribbean storms this year. So once again, we're heading into a time frame where it only takes a matter of time before these things really get going out here. And if we zoom in, even down here in the deep tropics off the coast of Africa, south of the Cabo Verde Islands, basically everywhere I'm highlighting has pretty significant upper ocean heat content. And you notice how that's now extending to just south of the Cabo Verde Islands out here. Really what we're taking a look at here is south of about 15 longitude. This is basically now where tropical waves are going to have the best chance for development between 10 north longitude and 15 north longitude out here. I'm sorry, latitude, that is, not longitude, latitude. But again, we're really speaking about 15 latitude to 10 to 15 latitude there. And again, that's only going to continue over the next several weeks to months as this continues to spread north. This area will spread north and warm with the warming Atlantic Basin. So again, it's really only now a matter of time. If we take a look here at the actual sea surface temperatures, this is from the CDAS methodology from tropicaltidbits.com. initialized this morning at about 7 o'clock, and we notice that this area is just steaming hot down here. I mean, boiling out here in the southwestern Atlantic, near Nassau, the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, all the way out here to the, depths of the Gulf of Mexico. And this right here, this is not shelf water through here. This is not, even out here, this is all not shelf water. This is that warmer water. And you notice in the upper ocean heat content values now, how we talked about the Gulf of Mexico during the peak of the hurricane season is always supportive of intense tropical cyclones, and this is why that very deep upper ocean heat content, you can imagine that if we get a system to take a track like that, somewhere within, this vicinity, it is going to spell trouble. And that's one of the things that's very important to point out. This upper ocean heat content is more than supportive of intense tropical cyclones, really all through in this area right through here, even off the coast there of the Lesser Antilles and Barbados, 29 Celsius there. So water temperatures, there are running close to about 90 Fahrenheit or closing in here on 90 Fahrenheit as well. Some buoys have actually reported upwards of about 94 Fahrenheit in some locations. So very important to understand that this has my concern at this moment. And again, it only takes one storm, so we do want to point that out. Now, I'm taking a look here at the wider shot. This is from the Eastern Pacific, from the College DuPage Cod Meteorology Satellite GOES 16 and 17 satellite viewer. This is actually the remnants here of Tropical Storm Christina. It never became a hurricane like it was supposed to, but again, it is actually now just a remnant circulation. They are no longer issuing advisories on that. You notice the very cool, stable atmosphere out here. This is a new tropical depression that formed from Invest 98E in the ATCF, the automated track forecast from the National Hurricane Center down there in Miami, Florida. They did go ahead, and now they're going to start initiating advisories on Tropical Depression 6, which is located, I believe that's the 6th name, or actually no, I think it's potential tropical cyclone 4 or something like that, I think. But regardless, this is a new tropical depression out here in the Eastern Pacific Basin, not expected to really do much and strengthen. Again, it's going to head in this general direction, a little bit south of where Christina is now, but overall cooler than normal waters out in this region, and just more stable air is not going to really allow this system to actually go on to develop significantly at all. Now, in the Atlantic Basin, we have a few interesting things to point here. Again, this is our little trough axis that right now, that was kind of entangled up with Tropical Storm Faye out here that, of course, came off of the Outer Banks of North Carolina and made landfall near Atlantic City, New Jersey, and just north of Ocean City, Maryland. Again, that area, this is still a little bit of a trough axis that's kind of cut off from Faye. Obviously, Faye is well dissipated at this time. But again, this is the little trough axis that we're watching. No significant development expected with this. Pretty dry air in this part of the world currently, as this kind of mid-level feature in the atmosphere has moved through Florida, bringing with it some drier air. Of course, that's going to inhibit any significant development out in this part of the world, as well as all of this drier air that is just kind of sitting out here. So not really expecting to see much development at this time anywhere out in the tropics at all. You notice a very strong, potent tropical wave. We have this kind of the intertropical convergence zone along with a couple wave axes and through here. Not really expected to develop, but it is an overall symptom, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. It's an overall symptom and sign of things to come down there in the deep tropics. Again, but not expecting anything in the next 5 days or so. And this is our little feature that we were talking about yesterday. It's kind of now entangled up actually within a trough axis, or a little bit of a trough axis slash front axis there. So not expecting any development out of that system at all either. So not really a lot going on down here. Again, the deep tropics will remain quiet for a little bit yet to come. It is still only July 13th. Climatology doesn't really favor anything this time of the year. July is typically the quiet time of year, but we do have something to look to beyond the next 10 days or so. We'll take a look at that here in just a minute or so. Now, What I did find interesting, this is basically the sea level pressure composite anomalies. So basically everywhere where you're seeing kind of this yellowish here, this is your higher pressure anomalies, your higher sea level pressures above normal, and your blues are indicative of lower than normal pressure anomalies. This would indicate your lower pressure areas. And this is basically taking a look at from the first, basically from April 1st all the way now through about July the 10th, rather. And again, what we're looking at is this area right in here. This area, we'll highlight that here in about red. That will give us a good color indication. So what you're taking a look at is lower than normal pressure anomalies down there. From the first of the month, basically, from the 1st of April all the way until July 10th. And this is very interesting because what ends up happening is these lower pressures cause less trade winds, but they also reduce some vertical wind shear down here, and they're not as associated with suppression in this area, a suppressed phase of the environment that would suppress these tropical waves from developing. Now, obviously, interseasonal forcing is unfavorable at the moment because it's only July 13th. But if we compare this to 2017, and you notice that the two comparisons, kind of eerily similar. We don't have a lot of this area out here in the Eastern Pacific and Western, and basically Western America there, but you notice we do have much of the same. It was a little bit amplified with the lower pressure anomalies out here, certainly near the Azore Islands, the Canary Islands, and then, of course, the main development region. But you notice how these 2 years are fairly similar. And for reference, what did it look like in 2013? Because I've seen some chatter that this might be another 2013. Well, nothing like 2013 at all. Very suppressive environment out here at the same time frame, basically from April 1st all the way through July 10th. Same time frame, way different pattern outcomes. The only anomalies you can really find is way out here in the very East Atlantic, but the rest of this very suppressive out here. It does tend to favor suppressive environments. It tends to favor a little bit stronger shear and also trade winds. This area was primarily shut down for that reason, and also other variabilities, but this looks nothing like 2013 in the interseasonal sea level pressures. This is probably not going to end up like a 2013, although we will start off slower probably than we did in 2017. Obviously, we're not probably going to get like a Brett or a tropical storm Dawn like we had, down here in the deep tropics in 2017. The environment was a little bit more favorable down there in the 2017, so really wasn't, looking all that suppressive down there. However, obviously, as we go on throughout the rest of the year, climatology is eventually going to overcome, the suppressive environment, and we will get systems. And the suppressive environment really isn't suppressive as much as it is just climatology for this time of the year. And it would not surprise me to see our season kind of condensed into, maybe 4 to 6 weeks or so. That seems to be the theme over the last, few years. 16, 17, 18, and 19 have all retrospectively had seasons that were kind of very condensed, within a 4 to 6 week period, really, for your main development region activity. Obviously, Dorian, in 2019, obviously last year, formed, way out in this region, tracked through the deep tropics, went through there, and obviously out through there. But again, it seems like over the last few years, we've had very slow starts, and then, in terms of deep tropic activity, and then really we condense it into 4 to 6 weeks of main development region activity. And I do believe that's probably what's going to happen this year. That seems to make the most sense. And it wouldn't surprise me to see activity last well into October at this point. So it is something to be mindful of, that don't let your guard down because we're not seeing main development region activity right now. Obviously, if we saw that right now, we'd be very concerned, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be busy. We saw that in 2017 where we almost had virtually no activity in July. I mean, other than, like Brett and Dawn, I think. And I think Tropical Depression 4 was also, Tropical Depression 4 was in July as well, if I'm remembering that correctly. But we're not really seeing signs that this is going to remain a very suppressive environment like 2013 or so. And it seems to be trending this season seems to be trending very well or very close to 2017 in terms of the overall environment. So it would not surprise me to see the season be really condensed within 4 to 6 weeks of MDR activity, some of which could go on to be very intense hurricanes. But I digress. Now, taking a look here at the GFS 850 millibar zone of wind anomalies. Basically, everywhere in the purples here, you're getting your easterly winds, and everywhere down here, basically in your kind of orangish and reds, that's your westerly winds. And this is for the first 5 days out to July 18th on the GFS. Again, very strong anomalies showing up here of westerly winds. This is basically very conductive to warming in the Atlantic Basin. This also creates a background cyclonic spin in the atmosphere across this whole entire region. So this area is going to likely warm up quite substantially. And you notice even out here from days 5 to 9, basically to the end of the month, basically you're getting these anomalies that are just showing up down here and really trying to take a significant advantage of, warming and everything else like that. You may even see some warming out here off the coast of Florida. That's obviously the last thing we really need, but very interesting. And in comparison, the European forecast model is showing this all the way to the 23rd of July, being persistent warming out here in the main development region, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico. Very persistent warming. So it's only a matter of time, folks, and I'm telling you. And to kind of back this theory up, this is the European 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. This is basically your spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. And look right there. Look what happens after hour 192. Obviously, this is way out in time, but you get the idea. In the GFS forecast, for reference, you obviously note here a tropical wave. You can clearly see it defined in the model field there. An interesting little thing trying to spin up here off the Canadian Maritimes, but waters are a little too cool there, so I'm not expecting much to develop off of there. But you do see my point here. Coming off the coast of Africa, this is roughly between 10 and 15 north here, tropical wave. And it's a very well-developed tropical wave. You notice that there is turning in the atmosphere, that cyclonic turning. The wind barbs clearly, this kind of spin in the atmosphere. It is there. And you look what happens even after, hour 198, another very well-developed. This one is arguably way more developed, coming off at about 15 north here. This is not near 20 north. This is about 15 north here, about 15 to 16 north. Just near the Cabo Verde Islands. So it's almost time, and for reference, that's hour 192 compared to 198. So the models might be starting to pick up on something. Obviously, we don't like to look out this far, but consistency in both models, and we'll see if this continues for the next 5 days, for the next couple of days or so. And if it does, well, I wouldn't be surprised to see the National Hurricane Center jump on board with this too. If the model guidance increases and persists, that's the key word, persists, because we like to see the consistency. If there is no consistency, then the models are just kind of playing a little kind of jump around game. But if this is consistent in the model guidance and it gets picked up by other models as well, we'll have to start looking out that way towards the latter half of this month. So we do have some stuff to watch here over the next past 10 days or so. But of course, as always, I will be tracking it as always. I may take tomorrow off to kind of work on our camera system project and to just kind of get some odds and ends things done. So do not be surprised tomorrow if there is not a video, but there still may be. It just may be shorter, or there may be none at all. But again, as always, I will be watching everything, and if anything significant pops up, for sure there will be a video out tomorrow. Otherwise, may or may not be one tomorrow, but I'll just kind of have to wait and see what I got planned for tomorrow. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael Romali, and I will see you guys back here then tomorrow afternoon, or on what day is it's going to be then Wednesday. So hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening, and I'll see you guys back here then tomorrow or Wednesday.